This is a Global Player original podcast. Oh, it's a good one this week. I know I always say that, but it is. It was August 2 years ago, and the government was trying to get us to go back to work after months of telling us not to go to work. Spitting Image was coming back, and I had some good advice for them, and we remember when no one was allowed to go into the front room.
I think he's betraying a quite stupefying ignorance.
Haven't started yet. Hang on. It's a good start. Some text and messages from last night. Glenn in Tipton says, you need to make your mind up. First of all, you say it's too hot and dry in California. Then you say it's too cold and wet over here. You can't have it both ways. Of course you can. Of course you can. He says, maybe you would like your own special temperature. Spelt wrong. Unless it's something that I'm not familiar with, spelt right. Masked Cabbie tweets, Nick, imagine if every adult working in a restaurant got $1,000 a month universal basic income. They could all chip in and help pay the rents, etc., and keep places open. Then they can float through to better times while keeping their jobs and the landlords get paid. Yeah, but what are they going to do for money? If you give everybody £1,000 a month universal basic income and they just give it to the place that they're working for, they ain't got that money no more. And by the way, Masked Cabbie, do you go to Brixton at this time of night?
No.
Didn't think so. Owain in Pimlico says, the reason I believe so much fuss was made over a land of hope and glory, the ban on singing of the words, was so to help the argument that the BBC licence fee needed to be axed. The Tories are doing everything they can to destroy the BBC. Yeah, that sounds about right. Pete says, my brother gave me a pack of maple-flavoured smoked salmon when I met him at Heathrow. It was horrible. Yeah, I was talking about this last night. The weirdest things you can buy in airport departure lounges. Why would anybody buy smoked salmon when they're about to get on a plane? What are you going to do with it? I mean, it's got to be refrigerated, right? I mean, you can't open it on a plane, because apart from anything else, you need a pair of scissors, and you're not allowed a sharp object on a plane. I'll put it in the luggage rack, where it will baste at 70 degrees, and then it will be perfect 12 hours later when I arrive in New York. Pete emails, my brother... Oh, no, I read that. Peter emails, Spitting Image is coming back. The Boris and Nigel puppets are very good. Roll on October. Yeah, I'm not sure. They don't look cruel enough. I think I mentioned this before. Political cartoonists are adept at taking an aspect of somebody's facial features and exaggerating it to comic effect. But I don't think they've done that in the puppets that I've seen that have been, promoting the return of Spitting Image. They look a bit like they're the people that they're based on. Not a grotesque caricature, which is actually what you want, for comedic purposes. That's just a tip. My other tip to the Spitting Image people is hire a lot of writers. 1 isn't enough. 2 isn't enough. 4 probably isn't enough. If you look at the late-night chat shows on American television, like John Oliver, for instance, or Bill Maher, people like that, they'll put in about, in a half hour, an hour-long show, it'll be maybe 10 jokes, something like that. And they have 12 people writing them. You need a lot of writers, particularly if you're churning it out once a week. But will they employ a lot of writers?
No.
No, of course not. They'll employ a lot of people to do the puppetry, I bet, and 1-2 people writing at most. Typical of British television. They just don't put the money in to the writing. It's like when you see a film. Whose name comes up first? Tom Cruise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock, all those people. They're the people that get the big money. But if it wasn't for the writers, they would be standing there, just staring off into space, not saying or doing anything. It's the writing that makes it happen. And you try and find the writer in the list of credits at the end of the film. I think he'll be right there under Best Boy Grip, whatever that is. Sounds awful.
Disgusting.
Every film's got one. 0345 6060 973. Is that all of the messages from? No, there's loads of them. God, I'm very bad at my job. All of those I didn't read. Well, I'll get to them in a minute. First, let's do today's news today, and then we can do yesterday's news later. How does that sound? This says, do you think that this is actually from today. Do you think if the PM and the President both shape-shifted into a lizard, they would be better looking? Says Sam in Guide Bridge. Guide Bridge. Where's that? Never heard of it. There's no such place, Sam. Suspiciously keen caller in Hayes. Lewis.
Oh, hello there, Nick. How are you this evening?
Good, thanks.
I'm a little bit more in tune this evening. My last night was a bit of a poor episode.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about too. You know the shapeshifters?
Yes.
Well, everyone's shape-shifting into dinosaurs increasingly, aren't they? It's like, back to work, please. But then put a bit of emphasis on remote working, then put a bit of emphasis on going back to work, and then doing the hokey-cokey by putting a little bit of ventilated air in and mixing it around with a bit of fresh air to sending it out. And then going back to this area and back to the R rate and spikes up the country where there's less people that have been entering the country, like they are entering the country down in the south near Hayes and the Heathrow Airport area. Yeah, we don't seem to have a spike in cases, but for some reason, one or the other, there's 6 at one, it's half a dozen the other in the Midlands, then we've got several cases going on up the north when there's no airports, or there is some, but not as many as there are in and around town.
And just to be clear, this is better than whatever it was you called in with last night.
Oh, this is much better, isn't it? It's, it's some things that have been... it's like the thing you said.
Overlooked.
Can I just say this? If some things have been opened, you need to think about whether measures need to be taken to reverse things.
Right, okay, I've got no idea what you're talking about. I don't think you do either. It's just word salad. It's like a dictionary just threw up on me. Here's a message about Guide Bridge. Guide Bridge is an area of Ashton-under-Lyne. There's no such place either in the metropolitan borough of Tameside. Nonsense. Historically a part of Lancashire, Guide Bridge was formed as a village built around an eponymous bridge over the Ashton Canal. Eponymous bridges are my favourite kind of bridge. It's not one of those suspension bridges. It's mostly made of bricks. I think that's an actual fact. It's educational, this programme, isn't it?
No.
An eponymous bridge over Ashton Canal, which itself takes its name from a signpost atop the bridge. Well, they put a signpost atop the bridge saying Ashton Canal because it was the Ashton Canal. They didn't have a canal that took its name from a sign that said Ashton Canal, because the only reason the sign that said Ashton Canal was there is because it was over the Ashton Canal. This show is going down. 0345 6060 973. Richie in Sutton says, Nick, how many writers do you have? Yeah, good point. Good point, Richie in Sutton. Well made. Thanks a lot, mate. This says the British philosopher Bertrand Russell... Oh, we're doing philosophy now.
Boring!
The British philosopher Bertrand Russell remarked that when the public sing Britons never, never, never shall be slaves, they really mean that Britain shall never be under the dominion of a foreign power. He reminded us that the mass of Britons are in a form of slavery, wage slavery. Says William in Newcastle. You bet we're in a form of slavery, wage slavery. I mean, just think about it. Are you financially secure? I'll assume that the answer is
no.
And furthermore,
No.
no, your entire life is spent peddling furiously just to try to keep up with your mounting bills. And it's a question of which can go faster. Your bills mounting up or you peddling, and it's usually about even. Am I right? I mean, you come out at the end of the year, have you actually made any money? Not really. Precious few people actually end a year better off than they started it. And those people are mostly those that really didn't need the money in the first place. To those that have, more. To those that have not, nothing. And you spend your entire life like that, just desperately running to catch up with your own credit card bill. That's a form of wage slavery. And it doesn't really matter how much you earn, up to a certain amount, you always spend more, because you are induced to do that. Oh, look at this shiny new thing. That's much better than the thing that you just bought from this shop 10 minutes ago, which is now out of date. The shame! And so we furiously try to keep up with ourselves, keep up with the ever-changing knickknacks that are thrust upon us. Oh, that one's bigger. That one's thinner. That one's got more colours. And so we change a car every 3 years, which is utterly insane. They make cars now that can do 200,000 miles without coughing. And we change them when the ashtray's full, or when the seat's got a scuff on it. Just throw it away. Insane. This is a life out of balance. And mostly we can't see it because we're too engaged in the race. You can't pull back like a drone and see where you are in the race because you're just furiously pedaling or running to keep up with yourself. But this lockdown, this virus, this thing, has given us an opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a once-in-many-lifetimes opportunity to just pause, put the entire world on pause, and let's have a little look at it, shall we? Let's just have a peek at what it is that we're engaged in. And I think the majority of people have come to the conclusion that it is quite obviously completely insane. Overall, you have to admit that the life we're leading is not one of balance. Where's the pause? Where's the enjoyment? There is no enjoyment. You flog yourself to death 5 days a week, sometimes 6. You're on call 24 hours a day. You're working to and from work. And what do you do on Saturday? You hare around the shops and try and pack in as much food in your car as you possibly can to get you through the next week. And on Sunday, you're totally exhausted. You can't do a blooming thing. And it's Monday the following day. Back to work already. And every now and again you get a bank holiday. Oh, a bank holiday. And what are you going to do with it? It's blooming freezing outside, pouring down with rain. So you're going to get in the car and you're going to go to the coast. And you probably won't manage to get there. You'll be stuck in a jam for 12 hours. As an aside, I think that the powers that be have taken the opportunity of us being inside to utterly change the road system, because it seems like there's as much traffic now as there used to be before all this happened. Oh, it was such sweet relief driving around London over the past few months, since April. Oh, it was bliss, back like it used to be in the good old days. But now I think that there's as much traffic as there ever was, but the jams are much worse than they used to be because the roads have been carved up. There's roads that you used to be able to drive down perfectly ordinarily and reasonably, which are now forbidden to traffic, other than the blessed bicycles. And getting through Balham is a complete nightmare. You just might as well forget it. Switch your car off and walk. You're not making it. And I'd have to say that the entire trip in that used to take, coming in about 50 minutes, going out about 40, is you've added like 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes is a queue of cars, as far as you can see, just idling, just inching forwards, spewing pollution into the atmosphere. That's not saving the planet. But they've just taken it upon themselves, the councils and whoever it is that does roads, to change things utterly while we were all locked indoors. And now we're all peeking out. It's surprise! We've ruined things for your convenience. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Inside that head of yours.
This says, Nick, my mate down under in Aussieland was studying Aboriginal music. The government and the exam board failed him. I had to ask him, did you redo it? Oh, I'm in pain. Oh. A listener with the material.
Oh, no.
This says, Nick, you are the only person that can make me laugh out loud. My cat thinks I'm nuts. Thank you, says Sue in Bow. No, Sue, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's not that you laugh out loud that makes your cat thinks you're nuts. Cats just think people are nuts anyway. I mean, they just sit there thinking, why are you staring at a piece of paper? I'll just come and sit on it, and then there'll be something interesting for you to look at. Why are you herring around like that? Just relax, have a nap. What's the big to-do, cats think. And when they're really disappointed with us, they go and sit in the corner and stare at the wall. They're just like, oh, can't take this anymore. Let's have Worcester. Dave.
Oh, good evening, Nick.
Dave.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm minded of the last days of the Roman Empire. All empires, and this is an empire of cash or bureaucracies, if you like, corporations, become decadent and become venal. And this one certainly is. I mean, we saw when the pandemic struck, we saw who we really needed in society. People that are paid the less but do the best. Nurses, people doing jobs that we rely on. And I think next
Are you all right?
week...
Are you having a spell?
Well, it's the decadence.
Right.
It's got to me.
Yeah.
But the next week we're going to have masses of propaganda to get people back, so-called, to work. And I think one of the main reasons is people are realising all these bureaucrats, all this plethora of bizarre managers, we don't need them. And that terrifies them. All these functionaries, we don't need them. And the world would carry on quite well without
It seems
them.
evident that there's a massive number of people who are doing non-jobs, and and I think it's just because those jobs have always existed, so that when people leave them, companies feel obliged to refill them. But if they did not do those jobs, then nobody would notice that they're gone.
Well, Nick, can you, and the listeners out there, can you imagine a world without the...
a world without possessions?
I'm not, well, Lennon, very good. But a world without these well, I call them endless mouths. These people like Johnson and Trump. Imagine a world without these people. Why do people put them on pedestals? And I always remember one thing that I found interesting. Thatcher was a good example of this.
Oh.
She was interviewed once I think it was by a nurse, not by these people that play the game, by a nurse, and they couldn't handle it. I'd interview Trump. I'd interview...
Well, no, wait a minute, back up. What did the nurse say?
Well, I think she just stuck to the truth and asked... I think it was about the Falklands War. I think it was about Belgrano, General Belgrano, if you remember. And Thatcher actually stormed out of the BBC. She couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Because these people, you know what they can't handle?
The truth.
That's the one.
Yeah. All right, good work. Thanks a lot, Dave. Keep your eyes peeled. 0345 6060 973. You remember Margaret Thatcher, don't you? Yeah, that's her. Kids will have to look her up in a book. In fact, well, you know what? You could Google her. No, I'll change my mind. Don't do that. I'm not taking the one on line 3, by the way. Ken in Westminster. Take a break. Don't call every day. I mean, take a year off. You deserve it. Nick, have you heard the word of the Lord? I was speaking to God and he told me to call you, Nick. Not now. Not tomorrow. Not the next day. I was talking to God in the break just now, Ken, and he specifically told me not to take your call. That's true. You can't prove otherwise. I mean it. Get rid of him. This says, you are my second favourite presenter. Second favourite? What? After Steve Allen, says Matthew in Hampton. Already with the Steve Allen stuff. You people are obsessed. Just leave him alone. This says, British summers are colder than Australian winters, says Paul Mullen. Well, it's absolutely blooming freezing outside. I thought very strongly. I was thinking very strongly about putting the heating on today. It's August. That's not good enough. And then I had to remind myself that we've actually had one of the best summers ever. It's just that it was mostly in spring. May was fabulous. I know that might not be a popular thing to say because, a lot of people, it was the start of the lockdown. And a lot of people were stuck in flats, no outside space. I bet a lot of people in flats that have balconies discovered their balconies for the very first time. I mean, I know that this is true. People demand, they have two initial demands. After the number of bedrooms that they want and the location, they demand a parking space and an outside space in a flat. And then they never, ever, ever use the balcony, other than to store a bicycle or to put their sky dish. You never see anybody on the balcony of a flat, ever. And I know this because when I lived in a flat, I was always on the balcony of my flat, and I could see dozens of them all year round. I'd be out there with a heated blanket, in the rain, holding an umbrella, sitting on the balcony of my flat. And whether it's rain or shine, hot or cold, I'd be out there, enjoying the great outdoors with the flora and the fauna. And there would never be anybody else on any of the balconies that I could see. Dozens and dozens and dozens of them, all completely empty, other than as storage for their child's brightly coloured plastic tat. But I bet during the course of May you discovered that you got an outside space. How did I get onto that? Oh, yeah, British summer's colder than Australian winters. Well, I did the weather yesterday, so I don't want to go over old ground. But let me just, for my own amusement, check what it's going to be like over the next couple of weeks, because it's absolutely blooming freezing outside. 65 Sunday, 60. This is in London's fashionable Leicester Square, so this will be a couple of degrees warmer than wherever you are. 63 on Monday. This is all cloudy. 67 on Tuesday. Is there any 70s? Thursday, 72. Friday, 71. Saturday, 70. And then back into the 60s. Ugh. It's over. Summer is over. Never mind, eh? This says, Spitting Image only needs one comedy writer. A funny one. No. It says Eric Chappell wrote Rising Damp. Peter Tilbury wrote Shelley and It Takes a Worried Man. What's that? Never heard of those. Shelley and It Takes a Worried Man. I'm unfamiliar. Rising Damp, I know. Both writers on their own regularly produce material much better than anything that appeared on Fools and Horses, says Archie in Inverness. Yeah, well, I'm one of those unfashionable people that didn't think much of Fools and Horses. Rising Damp was good because it had Leonard Rossiter, and he was one of the great British comic actors. But they were dramas that were amusing. They weren't joke fests, which is what Spitting Image has to be. Spitting Image has to be as funny as an American sitcom. You have to have a laugh every 30 seconds. I mean, you look at Friends or something like that, or Cheers, or Frasier, or any of those shows that lasted for 10 years or more. They have a joke every 30 seconds. And you could set your watch by. They don't have long periods of drama or character comedy. It's just joke, joke, joke. And that's what Spitting Image has to be. It has to be that. And for that level of jokery, every week, you need 10 writers. But they won't employ anywhere near that number. They'll employ 2, I bet you. 3 maybe tops. So I'm not really holding out any hope for it. But I'll give it a go, I suppose. I suppose so. Some texts and messages from yesterday. We were talking about TV, and Jamie from Grays says, talking about 1970s, televisions were actually made of wood, and you had to get up to change the channel. Yeah, you tell that to the kids today. And they'll say, what's a television, Grandad? Televisions, the fancy ones used to come in furniture, in cabinets with barn doors at the front, lest your neighbours come over and think you were as unsophisticated a person as to have a television in your well, they wouldn't call it front room, would they? They call it the Maybe they did call it the front room. I'm trying to think what they used to call it. Well, they didn't call it the lounge. They would have the room at the back where everybody did sit, and then there'd be the room at the front, which was, all set up really nice, and nobody was allowed to go in there. If the vicar came around, then you could go in and have a nice cup of tea, get out the good china, which would never, ever, ever see the light of day unless somebody really important came round, and you could go sit in the front room. You'd sit down, as a cloud of dust would envelop you. Oh, the good old days, yes?
No.
Tim in Manchester says, I work for a large company and my employer has already announced it is closing one of our 2 huge offices due to an employee survey. Too late, Boris. Companies are interested in cutting costs, not listening to you, says Tim.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about that then. The Business Secretary, Alok Sharma, led calls this week urging firms to get workers back to their desks. That's the Business Secretary. Guess how many of his own department have returned to work, by the way? What percentage of the Business Secretary's own department have returned to work as he is saying that we should? Anybody at all? Time's up. The answer is 5%. What? 5% of the Business Secretary's own department arrived at its central London HQ this week. What a nerve, eh? Business Secretary Alok Sharma said, if you need to come in, you should. I hope what we will see is people coming back into the workplace, and yes, I personally would like to see London vibrant again. OK, well, let's break that down, shall we? First off, if you need to come in, you should. Well, yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. If you need to do something, then you should. Shouldn't you? Of course. And he'd like us to go back to the office so that he can see London vibrant again. Well, I'd like to see London vibrant again. On the other hand, wouldn't it be nice to see your local high street vibrant again? If we stay working from home and shop locally, then that might happen. The high street where you live might be revivified instead of just accepting that our local shops will shut down in the face of the lure of city centres and Amazon. Why not spend your money locally, where it will probably do the economy more good because your local shop's unlikely to be part of a multinational tax-avoiding conglomerate. And it would be nicer, wouldn't it, to have a lot of local shops where you know them and they know you and there's a sense of community, rather than the impersonal city centre where you never see the same assistant twice and no one knows your name. The Daily Mail did some investigative reporting. They monitored the number of staff going to work at several Whitehall departments between 7:15 in the morning and 11 in the morning in the past month, which is good old-fashioned reporting. Sleuthing they are. I've turned into Yoda. Spying on you they are. Just 39 people apparently entered the Department of Work and Pensions on Wednesday. The Department of Work and Pensions is not working. That's 18 less than a fortnight ago. Wow, it's going down, not up. 39 people. That equates to a 2% of the number of people that worked before the lockdown at the Department of Work and Pensions. 2%. At the Department of Education, 3% of staff turned up on Wednesday. 10% arrived from the Treasury and Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, and so on. You get the picture. They're not showing up, but they want you to. A government spokesman said it's safe to return to a COVID-secure workplace, and the government departments have ensured appropriate measures are in place to enable as many civil servants as possible to return safely, which is essentially meaningless. They're saying it's safe to do things that are safe. Well, yes, but there's no such thing as safe. I mean, every year there are at least 5 pasta-related deaths in this country. Did you know that? Did you know that?
No.
No, because it's not true. But just because it's not true, it does not mean to say that it is not a fact. And that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, the next episode will get squirted up your life as though by magic. And don't forget the other podcast that I do. There's the one that I do with the delightful Carol McGiffin, in which Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while guffawing like seals. If you want us to have a bash at your issue, then you must send it to the following address: nickandcarol@global.com, nickandcarol @global.com, and prepare for total satisfaction. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? And then there's the Whole Show podcast, which is, as it sounds, the whole show from my Friday and Saturday night stints on the radio. We take the news and the ads out, which means it takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity. And by this time next year, you'll have saved up the bus fare to go to Tesco's so you can go round the back and rummage around in their skips for a bit of food. And I'll be back on the radio Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.